Welcome to the deep dive. We're looking at a situation that's really heating up, the conflict between Iran and Israel. It's complex, headlines everywhere. Our mission today is simple. Cut through that noise, give you the essential insights, the shortcut to being really informed. And joining me is our expert guide, who's fantastic at breaking down these tangled situations.
Thanks for having me. Ready to get into it?
Great. So let's start with the spark. June 13th, Israel launches Operation Rising Lion. What was really behind that specific move? I mean, beyond just calling it preemptive.
Right. Well, it was preemptive, yes, but driven by some pretty specific intelligence. It suggested Iran was getting dangerously close to nuclear weapons capability, maybe having enough enriched uranium for a device. And for Israel, that's seen as a fundamental and existential threat.
An existential threat. Okay, so they
Yeah.
targeted specific places.
Exactly. Key nuclear facilities like Natanz and Isfahan. Unfortunately, the operation also resulted in the deaths of some high-ranking Iranian officials and scientists involved in the program.
Okay, a major strike. So the media question then is, how did Iran hit back?
Iran's reaction was fast
Hmm.
and very forceful. We saw a significant barrage of ballistic missiles, also drones aimed at Israeli cities. Tel Aviv, Haifa, they caused real damage, civilian casualties too, and infrastructure hits. And then, crucially, Iran's supreme leader publicly vowed more escalation, so a very dangerous step up.
It sounds incredibly intense militarily, but let's shift focus a bit to the human side of this. What's the impact on civilians in Iran right now?
Oh, it's devastating. Reports suggest huge numbers fleeing Tehran, maybe over 100,000
Yeah.
people. Panic. You hear stories, aid workers describing families leaving with almost nothing. Essential services are getting disrupted. It's rapidly becoming a serious humanitarian crisis.
100,000 fleeing. That's staggering. And in Israel, what's the reality for civilians there under this retaliation?
Well, similarly tragic. There have been civilian deaths, injuries in places like Tel Aviv from the missile strikes, lots of property damage too.
Mhm.
But beyond the immediate physical harm, there's this profound psychological weight.
Mm.
Living under that constant threat of attack. The long-term mental scars are a real concern.
Right, the constant fear. Okay, let's zoom out. How is the rest of the world reacting to this sharp escalation?
Generally with a lot of concern. Lots of calls for de-escalation from, global players.
Mhm.
The U.S., for instance, supports Israel's right to self-defense, but is also urging restraint.
Hmm.
President Trump made specific calls like urging Tehran's evacuation and reiterating that Iran cannot get nuclear weapons.
Okay.
And it was a major topic at the recent G7 summit, too. It shows how seriously the world is taking this.
So concern and calls for restraint, but are there actual diplomatic efforts happening? Any active mediation?
Yes, there are. Diplomatic channels haven't shut down completely. Countries like Oman, Qatar, they're trying to mediate.
Yeah.
But honestly, the success of that really depends on whether both Iran and Israel are actually willing to talk and compromise.
Yeah.
And right now, with things so heated, that's
It's uncertain.
very uncertain.
Yeah.
Which leads to the broader regional picture.
Yeah.
How big is the risk this could spill over, destabilize the Middle East even more?
It's a very significant risk. You could easily see Iranian-backed groups, say in Lebanon or Yemen, getting involved. That opens up whole new fronts.
Right.
And then there's the economic angle. The Strait of Hormuz, a major oil choke point. If that gets disrupted, we're talking potential global economic instability, not just regional. Serious impact on oil shipments, supply chains worldwide.
A global impact. And what about other major powers? With the U.S. increasing its presence, is there a danger of like a miscalculation drawing in others, maybe Russia or China? That danger is definitely there. Increased military presence always raises the risk of miscalculation, an accident spiraling out of control. The U.S. is more visible, yes. And you can be sure Russia and China are watching this very closely. Their involvement, even indirectly, could make a volatile situation much, much worse. A regional fight could become global.
So it feels like we're on a knife's edge. Given everything we've discussed, what are the actual prospects for things calming down? Is peace even on the horizon?
Look, de-escalation is possible, but it really needs both sides to step back and see the potential for, frankly, mutual destruction if this continues. International pressure, maybe some successful back-channel diplomacy, that could lead to ceasefires. But for any kind of lasting peace, you have to tackle the root causes, Iran's nuclear program, those deep regional security fears. That's the hard part.
And what can the international community realistically do to help push towards that beyond just making statements?
Several concrete things. They can actively facilitate dialogue, offer themselves as neutral mediators, provide essential humanitarian aid that's critical right now, and also consistently enforce international law. Clear rules of engagement, protecting civilians that helps create a framework where maybe, just maybe, peace efforts can gain traction.
That really helps clarify a deeply worrying situation. Thank you for walking us through all of that complexity.
My pleasure. Good to talk it through.
And thank you for tuning in to this deep dive. Here's something to think about as we close. In a world facing these kinds of intense conflicts, what's our responsibility as global citizens to stay informed and maybe even advocate for peace, even if we're far away? Keep questioning, stay curious. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.